Hey, today we're going to talk about writing ratios and proportions. So let's just talk about what they are. First things first, a ratio uses division to compare two quantities, A and B, whatever they are, and B cannot equal zero. That symbol is a not equal to zero symbol. So we have three different ways that we write ratios. You can always put it like A to B. You can have A colon B, still pronounced A to B, and then A over B using a fraction, which is still A to B. So either way, usually we don't write it in words like this, but this is always how our three options are. The next thing to define is a proportion. A proportion is an equation that states that two ratios are equivalent. So again, back to ratio, right? Ratio, we usually use the fraction. So A to B is our ratio, and we got two of them, C to D, and we're saying that they're equivalent. Equivalent means equal. So A to B equals C to D. Okay, so here's an example. Write a ratio. A shoe store sells 15 pairs of women's shoes and 12 pairs of men's shoes. So we want to first find the ratio of women's shoes to men's shoes. So first we got to find women's shoes. Where's that? 15 pairs of women's shoes. So women's came first, so that goes in my numerator, 15. To men's shoes. Well, what's that? 12 men's shoes. So it's 15 to 12. The ratio of women's to men's is 15 to 12. The only thing we've got to do is reduce that. They're both divisible by 3. So 15 divided by 3 is 5. And 12 divided by 3 is 4. So the ratio of women's shoes to men's shoes is 5 to 4. For every group of 5 women's shoes, there are 4 men's shoes. Okay. Next, find the ratio of men's shoe sales to total shoe sales. So men's, we know that. Men's came first. That's our 12. The total, we don't actually know. It wasn't given here. But we can do the math. 15 for the women's, 12 for the men's. So we add it up. 15 plus 12. Oh, I'm thinking ahead. 15 plus 12 is 27. So we have 12 to 27 for men's to total. That's a 27. Both both divisible by 3. We can reduce this. So we divide 12 divided by 3, which is 4. 27 divided by 3, which is 9. So the ratio of men's shoes to total is 4 to 9. Cool? So make sure you get down this whole slide. This is all should be repeat stuff and not too big of a deal. Okay. The next slide also should be kind of repeat. Now, sometimes we're going to need to solve a proportion. So the proportion we're solving is 7 over 9 equals x over 54. So that means that 7 to 9 of something equals x to 54 of something. Now we could draw a picture, right? It could be like 7 blue dots. 7 blue dots to green, 9 green dots. And then we could do this so many times that we actually end up with 54 green dots, right? And then we could count how many blue dots we had. But that's not necessary. That's a method. There are so many different methods. And we're going to share with you in a moment. If you're peeking ahead, try not to. There are so many different methods and ways to solve proportions because they're equivalent ratios. So the first method is to realize you have an equation, and solving equations, you just undo the variable. Where's my variable? It's here. It's in the numerator. So the first method I chose was to undo it. What's happening to the variable? Well, fraction is division. So it's being divided by 54. What's the opposite of division? Multiplication. So I'm going to multiply by the denominator, which is 54. So I do 54 times 54. They will cancel because they're opposites, because it's really like divide 54 times 54, and that's 1. The opposite side, I have to multiply 7 ninths times 54, which is really like multiplying a fractions, you're only multiplying that 54 by 7, the numerator, and that's 378 divided by 9, still there, which is 42. Cool. X equals 42. But there's another way. Here's the other way. You could also realize, okay, 9 times something gives me 54, and that doesn't always work, by the way, but in this case it does. 9 times 6 is 54. Maybe you're really quick with your multiples and you see this quickly. So if it's the same ratio, that means there are 6 groups of these dots. Then I have to have 6 groups of the 9 green dots. That means I also have to have 6 groups of the 7 blue dots. So therefore, 6 times 7 has to give me my x. It has to be equivalent. So 7 times 6 is my x, and that's 42. Hey, look at that, same answer. Must be on the right track. Another method to talk about is cross multiplication with equivalent ratios. It has to be an equal sign. Sometimes people mess this up with just multiplying fractions. Don't do that. With equivalent ratios, there's an equal sign. You're going to cross multiply. So I have 7 times 54 equals 9 times x. Don't forget there's an equal sign. So I have 9 times x, that's 9x. 7 times 54, that's 378. Now I have this equation, 9x equals 378. Divide by 9 to undo this 9, and I have x equals 54. I'm sorry, x equals 42, as it is here. So therefore, in all 3 different ways, pick your best. Pick one that makes sense to you. Now, I want you to pause the video and try to solve both of these proportions, and guess what? Plug it back in. Check. You can always check. Once you're done pausing, you'll go right back to this, hit play, and you'll see what I did. In the meantime, I'm going to do some work. So I'm going to notice here that I have x over 72 equals 3 over 8. Well, I'm no point in looking at 3 to 3 to x, so I'm going to look at from 8 to 72, because 3 to x is my unknown, so I'm going to look in the denominator. 8 to 72, how do I get there? Well, 8 times 9 is 72. So that means 3 times 9 is x. 9 times 3, 3 times 9, 9 times 3, and that's 27. Check it by plugging it back in. 27 equals 72. I'm sorry. Wow. 27 over 72 has to equal 3/8. Has to equal it. You can put it in a calculator and you get the same ratio, or you can do the hat trick if you remember that. All right, cool. Number 5, so solve the proportion. 18 times what is 90? Well, maybe that one's not so fast, but there is something cool I can do here. 9 over 18 is not in simplest form. So I can reduce 9 over 18. Or I could cross multiply and divide, or I could just multiply both sides by 90. But because I can reduce this, it's going to make my life a lot easier. 9 over 18 is 1/2. 1/2 equals y over 90. Now I'm going to cross multiply. 2y, when I do 2 times y, equals 1 times 90 is 90, and 2y equals 90 divided by 2, and y equals 45. All right. You can plug that back in to check it. You have 9 over 18 equals 45 over 90. 45 half of 90 is 9 half of 18. Yep, both equal to half. One last thing to do. Pause the video if you need to copy anything down that you didn't get, or rewatch it after. So we've got a word problem here, and it's no big deal, so let's take a look at it. Ignoring all this stuff below here, only look at the black ink. It really is an example 6. It's really example 3, but I kind of just continue numbering and wrote example in front of the ones that are examples. All right, almost done. A restaurant owner uses 3 cloves of garlic for every 5 pints of sauce. The restaurant uses 210 pints of sauce during the day. Find the number of cloves of garlic the restaurant uses to make the sauce. So there's a proportion here. You're talking about 2 different things. We're talking about cloves of garlic for every 5 pints of sauce. Cloves of garlic for every pint of sauce. So there's a relationship there. In order for us to make this delicious sauce, there needs to be that exact proportion. Every time you make a recipe, right, it's some amount of something with some amount of something else, and usually a lot more than that. But here we're only comparing two things, which is cloves of garlic, pints of sauce. So that's our first thing to do, is to make a proportion. We're comparing cloves of garlic to pints of sauce. I always write it because sometimes if you don't, you can mix up the order of where things go and it will no longer be correct. So let's first talk about the original. How many garlic cloves? 3. To how many pints of sauce? 5. So that ratio should be together. The original ratio, that first sentence, should be together in a ratio. Then the second ratio is the one with the unknown. That's why I wrote it small. I wrote unknown there. And that unknown is which part? The garlic cloves of pints of sauce. Well, find the number of cloves of garlic. So that's my unknown. That's where my variable goes. It's cloves of garlic, garlic cloves, same thing. And we do know something about the pints of sauce for the day. It says the restaurant uses 210. You hear that? 210. So now I've got a proportion. 3/5 equals x over 210. Solve it any way you'd like. So the other way we didn't talk about just yet, other than the example, is to multiply by the denominator. The x is being divided by 210. So to cancel that out, I'm going to multiply by 210. Those then cancel. And now I have 210 times 3, which is 630, divided by 5, which is 126. So, whoa, our restaurant uses 126 cloves of garlic during the day. Sweet.